The 2024 NBA draft is officially over. What did the Denver Nuggets do? Let's break it all down. Plus, Jamal Murray set to sign an extension. Reggie Jackson traded. KCP opting out. Jam-packed show for you. This is DNVR Nuggets. Yeah, he's just scoring 50 on it. I actually want to see that world. I want to see what happens. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the DNVR show. Man, the energy there. Those are all fake. Every single one of them. It's partly that, but it's partly also the uneasiness of the flight. A little turbulence on the flight right now. We are in the Toyota Lounge, driven by your Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. This is going to be a big show. I want to jump right into it because there's so many different things to talk about. So I'll introduce the panel. I got Brendan Vogt here.
What's up, gang? If you missed us, I don't know how that's possible because we've only been off air for like a third of a day. So welcome back.
Oh, I was like, there's a weird smell that just crept in. That's like really
again?
strong.
We're used to that. So
everything is perfect until we go live.
I know. It's so true. Dude, we're literally this is fine while everything's burning. I know. That's the show, but literally.
Or it's like when there's a new pope and the smoke gets released. There's a new nugget. The smoke's getting released.
It's a rough smell. Over here, Harrison Wind. Smell that?
I know, like, it feels like something is burning for the second show in a row. If you turned into the draft show, the studio was slowly filling with smoke last night. Nobody seemed alarmed, except for us. We survived, though.
We did survive it. Superstar Deb's in the house.
The next time you guys see me, I'll be in Vegas. And I'm excited about Vegas, man. I'm excited about the two-way players that they have. I'm excited about the young guys that are going to be on the roster. I'm genuinely excited. It's not me just saying it. I'm ready for this one.
I'm ready for it as well, man. We're going to get to the Jamal Murray extension. What does he need to do to live up to that $209 or $210 million extension? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what it means that Reggie Jackson was salary dumped and cost 3 second-round picks. We're going to talk about that. KCP. We'll get to all those stories. But I want to start with some DaRon Holmes talk.
Yeah.
Because we obviously were given immediate reactions. This really is a true hangovers take, Kale. Because you have your immediate reactions. We've scouted him. We talked about him several days. Last night, I was on YouTube/Synergy. Between last night and today, I don't know. I might be 3 hours into my DaRon Holmes scout. I have updated perspective. Do you guys as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. My first note from watching him, deep dive on YouTube as well, I love the passion that he plays with.
Yeah.
I love how hard he plays and how aggressive he plays.
Yeah.
Comparing him to one of the guys whose spot he might take, Zeke Naji, like that's going to be a really welcomed addition, I feel like, to the second unit. I love the passion and just the determination that DaRon Holmes plays with. Like, he always goes hard. Every highlight I was watching, like, this dude plays really hard. He's got a great motor. And, that was something that stuck out to me that I didn't really know about him before.
For sure.
Yeah, the big thing for me is I think that mentally, or just like watching the highlights, and it's highlights, so I didn't really get into it. Most of it is all dunks. And scoring the basketball. So it was a lot of offensive, things that were popping. But going like deeper into film, a lot of it is defense. I did not expect him to be like as good defensively or have as many defensive highlights as he does offensive. And I think that was the big push for me, is starting to come around to the idea that this is a good defender that's behind him, behind Aaron Gordon, that could play, that power forward and could step out and play that center spot. So I think that that's a big one for me.
Saw some weaknesses too, right? I mean, it's very easy in the early scout to see the strengths and the highlights. And there are questions. It's not like he was a slam dunk pick for anyone in the lottery. And, I described him as a effective screener. I already kind of want to back off that a little bit. I think he's a willing screener.
Yeah.
And he's very active.
That's right.
Very active. But coming out of that screen, it does look a lot to me like he prefers the pop more than anything else, or more than the roll.
We were sitting there on Synergy watching his roll, all roll plays, every time he set a screen and then rolled to the basket. And what would you say, 8 out of 10 are pops?
Yeah, a lot of those are actually, he does have some, he sneaks behind the defense when rolling, and he is a good lob threat.
Yeah.
But it seemed like his preference was to pop back out to the perimeter. Some of that is also team style,
Yep.
the roster you're on. We'll see what Denver asks him to do. But definitely seemed like more of a popper than a roller, for whatever that's worth to you. And then, like the post stuff I didn't think was super encouraging, as opposed to some of his blatant strengths that we've talked about. So, yeah, there are some weaknesses too.
So I think starting with what Wynn said, it's the number one trait of his, to me, is his motor. He plays so hard. He has an incredible amount of energy. And I want to start with all the positive things. So number one, to me, he participates in every part of basketball. And I really like that about him. Screens, rebounds, runs in transition, cuts. When it's like some guys, when they have the ball in their hands, they have a lot of energy. When the ball's not in their hands, they lose, they have 70% that energy. Not him. I think he does everything with the same level of intensity. And that's rare. I think Bruce Brown was one of those guys. Bruce Brown also just had one level of intensity. It was never like, oh, he doesn't do this at full speed. He does everything at full speed. DaRon Holmes does that as well. And I really appreciate that about him, because I think that tells me Denver needs that guy. Denver actually needs a guy that brings that. I think when you watch him, for me, I think if you drew 1 point over here and said Jeremy Grant, and 1 point over here and said Jared Vanderbilt, I think he's like in the middle of those two guys. He has some of Jared Vanderbilt's traits and some of Jeremy Grant's, and some of the strengths and weaknesses of both guys, but he's almost a combination of those guys, not as in 1+1, but the average of those two guys.
Yeah, what I love about that take, and you just talk about it being rare, in a guy, this is a guy that was at not a huge school. He was the best player. So you're getting that type of energy from the best player at the time.
Right.
He's going to come into a setting. He is not close to the best player. He's not going to be the best player at any point. So you're already getting those and you can't teach that type of motor. You can't teach a guy to work that hard. It's already instilled in him. So for him to be a young guy and just already have that in him, it's just going to make him that much better, because he's going to be learning from the best, working with the best, working extremely hard, and he's going to get better. But having the 2 points and meeting in the middle, those are two elite role players, guys that you could just plug and play. That's what comes there.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, plug and play.
That's a
just came up with that
good
right on the
term to
spot.
use.
Well, I feel like he's been the hunted the last 3 years as a junior,
God.
but now that he's a rookie, he can be the hunter.
He's going to be a hunter.
Yeah, so there you go. The other thing about him, I actually think his number one skill, his motor and his willingness to play hard and participate in everything, that's his number one trait. To me, his number one skill, this is so specific, he's really good at sealing. And so if you look at what he did in college, 32% of his possessions were post up. That's a really high number. I'm not sure how much his post game is going to translate, because he's not that tall, he's not that big. And in college, especially in his conference, he was matched up with a guy his size at least half the time. Wouldn't you say at the post-ups?
Yeah, not NBA size centers.
Guys his size. And I think he's going to be good at that, and that's a trait. AG almost exclusively posts up when he gets somebody his size or smaller, but he doesn't necessarily just go down and post up Julius Randle, right?
Right.
It's all this. I think he has a similar trait, and he's really good at sealing. So he's so active and he's long that he constantly makes you, okay, you got a 3/4 court front on one side, spins it the other direction, and now he's got you sealed. And so he makes you defensively constantly have to fight around him. And I know that's a weirdly specific thing, but we watched, 100 post-ups of his today. That was 80% of them were mostly off of that. He just was doing his work before the catch. But guess what? The best post-entry passer in the entire NBA on that specific thing is Nikola Jokic. Aaron Gordon does it nonstop. Jokic throws those passes to him.
Got him sealed.
To me, that's his first and most important trait is in transition, off-ball movement where team screens and he gets a mismatch.
Yeah.
He's going to maximize those opportunities alongside Jokic really well. And I think that's his most translatable skill.
Yeah, against mismatches particularly. And then in transition, we've seen Aaron Gordon do that a lot. Work really hard to get down the floor, to force that mismatch. And obviously, there's no one better at finding those angles than Jokic. And he is coordinated enough at like the catch and turn and everything. You know, he's useful there. It's when he doesn't get the seal, and he's not going to back anyone down. I don't think
He's too little.
He's too little. He struggled with that. I thought
He does have a will, though.
I shouldn't say anyone.
He has will, though. Like, there's players like this, you know what I'm talking about, where it's not like they got there smoothly, but they got there because they were determined. And he's kind of determined.
And another HE trait he has is he throws a layup up, but almost leaving himself in position to go attack the offensive rebound. Like, he's active and hungry. He's just not going to probably back a lot of guys down and bowl through them. He does kind of rely on that, like that 7-footer kind of fadeaway. You know, when you almost fail to post up and you just kind of take the bailout shot. I don't like that. But I agree the ceiling is definitely a strength.
The word I would use to describe him on those types of plays is relentless.
Yep.
Like, he will keep going and going and going until he puts the ball in the basket. I love his aggressiveness and just the determination he shows on those post-ups. And I really love his jump shot, too. You know, his three-pointer looks a little mechanical, I think, at times. I think that will get smoothed out, you know, the more reps he gets and as he gets in an NBA development program. I love his mid-range jumper, though. His mid-range jumper also seems smoother than his three-pointer to me.
When's he going to get it, though?
On post-ups?
So you think that well, are the Nuggets going to post him up, though?
Why not? Second unit? Why not?
I don't know if he's undersized. Right?
He's 6'10".
I'm saying
at the 4.
If he's, but he'd probably be playing, let's say he's playing backup center and he's matched up with bigger guys. I don't know if you really want to be posting him up. It didn't look like his right away strength to me coming out of college, but
I just love him around the basket. I love his feel around the basket. Kind of going back to what you were saying about how he seals people and stuff. Just seems like he's got good awareness in the paint. You know, if he's picking and popping, if he's rolling to the rim, the post-ups that I have seen of him, he's just, going back to what I said last night, he's just a very polished guy for, you know, a 21-year-old post player. Like, big men, sometimes they take a little longer to develop, but, like, he is such a offensive, polished guy where I just think he's going to be pretty effective on that end of the floor as a rookie.
Yeah. The shot is interesting. I do think that it's going to be a major, like, shifts the odds more dramatically than probably anything else, as if he's capable of being that pick and pop threat. I also wonder, here's the thing about Dayton. Did they have a great backcourt? Did they have great pick and roll play? I didn't watch them all year, but from what I watched in some of these pick and rolls, I think part of why he popped is it was easier to get him the ball there than it was to get to attacking downhill. So I'm kind of curious to see if he has more of that to his game. But the three-point shot, like the pick and pop game, if he is a threat to shoot the three, then he has an automatic, you don't even need to run plays for him. Just pick, pop, that's part of what he does. So I do think that's a major inflection point. Calvin Booth last night compared him to Al Horford, and the shot kind of is because it's out in front. Like, Al Horford's shot kind of is out here, and his is kind of like that as well. So I see it.
Yeah, I believe in the shot. I definitely believe in the three-point shot. I mean, he shot it enough at a good enough percentage last year, and it looks smooth enough to where, like, I think he's definitely going to be a shooter.
Curiously enough, though, he did take some wild ones. Because you look at 38.6%, fewer than 100 attempts, so every miss and make gives you a percentage up. Mm-hmm. And just when we were going through them, we saw 3 or 4 that you were like, that's a wild step back.
Some of that was, I thought, kind of important to remind yourself that he was the best player on that team. So there was some, I'm going to make a play here kind of, and not all of them went according to plan. But again, I think you're trying to picture this guy in a scaled down version of his role. That said, I really liked Dev's earlier point that when you say best player, it's not like they just gave him the ball in the perimeter and just let him cook for 20 seconds. It's like he screens and rolls.
Correct.
Oh, that didn't work. He rescreens. Oh, this time he popped, or now he's cutting. Like, he was very, very involved. So to me, he looks like a guy that can scale down quite well. I think the pick and pop, I'm hopeful that it's going to be an NBA-ready skill for him.
Yeah, but being that involved as a big man is a lot different, especially at that type of school and having all of the attention on you. So you talk about shooting, 38% from 3?
38.6.
With some tough shots in between that.
Yep.
if he doesn't take those tough shots, he's shooting like 48%. Then we're really going to be lost.
Yeah, right.
So like at least you got to see those, pieces to his game, but also he worked on that to get to that point to taking those type of shots. Maybe that was like an emphasis of like you need to take these type of shots to open up the rest of your game.
Right.
But you do see him pop in different ways. He really is versatile. Like the jump shot is not what you're like looking forward to, but he has the ability to knock it down. You're not looking, you're not going to run the offense for him to like set and just shoot threes the entire time. But is he going to be active? Is he going to roll? Is he going to rim run? Those are going to be parts of his game, and he sets hard screens that he can make things happen and then set up for ISO plays. So you're not getting a guy that just you're having to teach everything. Like you're not starting from scratch with him. I don't think that it's just fully polished, but at least you have something that like you can start at, and he's going to get better at.
Go ahead.
Well, just to make like an earlier kind of distinction on what Wind was pushing back on, I think going to him in the post can mean different things. So like he has a seal on a smaller guy. Yeah, that's a great. But I don't know if you want him to. If you want to say like, hey, take 6 dribbles and attack this guy and try to back him down, I think that is less of his game.
And one thing about the ceiling, as great as he is, he goes to it a lot. Even on pick and rolls when he rolled, a lot of that was roll and then seal. Try to hold position there. He's not going to get a lot of opportunities to do that when Yoke's on the floor. You need to clear out. And one area I haven't seen him playing a lot of in the tape so far has been the dunker spot. So I'm actually curious if that's a spot he's ever played. When you're a high usage player,
Probably
when you're the best player on the team, you're not usually in the dunker spot. So
that's a good point.
I don't know if he has any instincts there if he's played that spot. Lastly, the defense is impressive, and part of this is just motor. I do think there's something to you play him alongside a Peyton Watson. That's 2 guys that are going to have this chaotic energy on defense that you need. As long as they can stay disciplined, it's a good trait.
Yeah, his defense was impressive to me. I was kind of looking at him as an offensive first player when they drafted him last night. That was kind of my read on him. But he's very capable defensively, too. He can cover a lot of ground. DaRon Holmes is an interesting athlete. I feel like he's not an elite athlete. And
only 27.5 vert or something like that?
And like we all have been loving comparing him to Zeke Naji just in terms of the measurables. I think Zeke Naji is like a way better run and jump athlete than DaRon Holmes. Just like straight line drive, straight north-south speed. Like his build as well, I just think is a little more impressive than Holmes. But like Holmes has more functional athleticism. Like he knows how to use his athleticism way better than Naji does. His timing seems really good on block shots at the rim. He had a couple great chase down blocks that I saw as well in transition. I really love how he runs the floor. It seems like DaRon Holmes runs the floor really hard.
Oh, so
on,
hard.
Like fast breaks, just like those Hail Mary outlet passes too.
But also zero hesitation. We were watching some of the clips where like the second the ball is secured, sprints the other direction. And I mean, again, he has just a motor.
Yeah, so his defense, I'm impressed with, and I wasn't too high on it before I really looked into him last night.
Yeah, and I thought how like maybe what he lacked in like lateral fluidity and stuff, there was his very quick reactions. Like I think he reads the play and he's sort of decisive in like where he should be as a help defender and closing out and protecting the rim. So there are some really nice instincts there. Offensively, if you just watch the highlight reels, you will see a lot of fun dunks in transition. But to Wynn's point, like he's not really the most explosive athlete without a clear runway. Like some of these post-up layups he tried to get off were really below the rim attempts, and he got his shot blocked a fair amount in some of the clips we watched. So it's not like, Gordon can dunk from a standstill on dudes. I don't know if Holmes
he can too. He has that. But I think what you're talking about here is strength, because he doesn't mind contact. There's a lot of going in, like throws caution to the wind. Will go up between 2 guys, go for a rebound between 2 guys, and fall over. That's why it reminds me more of Vanderbilt than Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon, when he goes up for those, guys bounce off his shoulders.
He goes through and
he goes through them.
Yeah.
Where Vanderbilt would do this, where he'd get like 3-4 offensive rebounds in a row, and they were all like kamikaze
But it's almost like his hands are tangled with the contests, like constantly.
And that's why I think he's almost more Vanderbilt in that trait, where it's a good motor, but it's not always powerful or explosive. But
that strength might be a better way to put it. Yeah.
All right, let's take a break. That's updated thoughts on DaRon Holmes. We'll probably talk more and more about him, and perhaps even with him here in the near future. But today was actually as much about the other stuff as it was about DaRon Holmes. So we're going to get to that, including Jamal Murray's max extension, which is on the table as we speak.
I also got a little scoop from my guy Barry McCoy on Instagram. He told me that DaRon Holmes picked 15 because his birthday is August 15th. Little scoop for you.
Does that do anything? No.
Does that change anything at all? No. I'm gonna say
So you
no.
can move over to 8. Nope, you can't be 8.
Yeah.
It's got to get a new number.
I don't
Man.
know. What's 15 plus 8? Maybe he could be that.
Nobody knows.
Guys, Vestibule, you can buy stocks in athletes with Vestibule. As sports fans, we've all had the thought, what if you could buy stocks in athletes? Well, now you finally can with Vestibule. Vestibule is an app, the first of its kind investment app where fans can invest in an athlete's career and get paid a portion of the athlete's income throughout it for doing so. You heard that right. Finally, real athlete stocks. The first athlete launching, Baron Browning, outside linebacker for the Broncos, one of the most explosive and dominant young pass rushers in the league. He's in his rookie contract, heading for what could be a great contract extension. So now is the time to invest. You don't want to miss out on this guy. As fans, we are obsessed with our teams and athletes. We buy their jerseys, buy their trading cards, spend hours watching every game. Now it's time to take the next step and earn a return on your fandom. Baron's IPO live in the Vestibule app right now. You can download the app with that QR code right there on the screen. I believe the link is in the description as well. Shares are available for purchase, but they're limited. So go download the Vestibule app today and invest.
If you're heading out to Vegas for, I don't know, maybe NBA Summer League, something of the sort, you know where to stay. And if you don't, you're about to find out. Circa Resort and Casino, baby. Our HQ in the desert, our fortress, our home away from home. Check out Circa Stadium Swim to watch the best sports action during this summer. Use code DNVR20. It's DNVR20 at checkout. You'll get 20% off at Vegas' first ever adults-only casino resort with the world's largest sports book, a big old casino, and a really, really, really big pool. That's what we call Stadium Swim. It's where you can hang out. It's open 365 days a year, 4,000 person capacity. Beat the Vegas Heat. Watch your favorite teams, your favorite bets play out. Experience Stadium Swim and watch your favorite teams at Circa Resort and Casino. Book your stay with code DNVR20 for 20% off.
Kale, did you just receive this tweet that has nothing to do with us, but we got to bring it up anyway?
This is
too
breaking
funny.
news. We got to.
This is breaking news. It's too ridiculous. Last night we were just talking about our old pal Tim Conley and how last night he had they drafted Dillingham and he said he's a one who's a bucket, which is just such a Tim thing.
Last night is Tim Connolly's Super Bowl every year.
But apparently he's burnt out, you guys. He's not slept. It is operating, according to Senior VP Matt Lloyd, he's operating much like a beautiful mind meme.
What is a beautiful mind
love
meme?
the
You don't remember the meme where he's like, isn't that what it is? where it's all
hang
the...
on. Tim's busting out algorithms just to pick the rawest hooper he can find. He's like, and if we carry the 4, yes, he's nice with the
Well, he's
rock.
probably conflicted.
So
He's like, do I switch it up or do I stick to the bit?
Stick to the bit, baby!
Stick to the bit.
Hoopers! All right, that's them, though. We're us. Jamal Murray, allegedly, according to Shams Charania, has been presented with, or is working towards, I should say, a max contract extension, a 4-year max extension. We had briefly entertained the idea that maybe Denver wouldn't offer this right away. I think that was probably... Look, at the NBA, your star players kind of have you. You have to give them the extensions, this or that. Also, Jamal Murray was a freaking stud en route to a championship 1 season ago. Ended on a bit of a sour note. Yeah. But what's your first thought when you see that this extension is now presented to him, making $50 million a year?
Yeah, seems like it's going to be a max deal for 4 years. And I think he's under contract for next year already, so the extension will kick in after next season. You know,
that's all of the prime. That's Jokic's prime right there.
Yeah, you're pretty much tying Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray together, throughout most likely the rest of their careers, or at least the rest of their careers where they're in their quote-unquote prime.
Yep.
This is going to be the Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray show for the foreseeable future. And, you know, my take on this is, look, the Nuggets, I think, are making a bet that last year, Jamal Murray's performance in the playoffs was an aberration from the norm. It was a deviation from how well Jamal Murray typically plays in the playoffs and how well Jamal Murray will play in the playoffs going forward.
Right.
I think that's the bet the Nuggets are making. I personally think it's the right bet to make. I feel like it's kind of a move you have to make. What, are you just going to let Jamal Murray go into a contract year and then potentially walk?
No way, man.
You're not going to do that. This is Jamal Murray. You won a championship with him, playing at a historic level a year ago, 380 days ago, I think it was. So I think it's an expected move. I think it's the right move. And look, now it's on, you know, Jamal Murray to do what needs to be done to have a way better regular season and be healthy for the playoffs. It's on him now.
What do you think, Dev?
Yeah, I think that the ball, I mean, the organization is saying, hey, we believe in you. And, I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there that do believe in him. I think that the timing right now is why people are down or why people are questioning this. But it all comes to, this is the best running mate for Nikola Jokic, and he is in his prime. And they have always been a package deal. It's been the two of them. And you can't put a price on that type of chemistry. You can't put a price on playing the right brand of basketball, and they seem to do that. Yeah, Jamal didn't play up to his standards or what we expect of him. But, I mean, he's also a key point of them being champions.
Yeah.
And you can't take away from that. Also, when you back a guy like Jamal, after an injury, he comes back and gives you a championship. Right after you backed him. You didn't trade him. You let him know that we believe in you. He just has a bad, playoff run. You go and back him again and say, hey, we believe in you. He feels like he owes it to you to be the best that he can be. Like, he's going to be better. And we all know the type of competitor that Jamal is. He is going to be better. And I just think that goes a long way. So I think that this is something that you had to do. I think that you got him for cheaper because of what happened, him not making an all-star
Supermax
team again. You don't get the Supermax.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
So I think that this was just like writing on the wall, and you got it done, sooner than later.
And we'll see what happens in a couple years from now. Maybe it really doesn't work out, and then he's under contract, and a trade is talked about, or something happens down the road. But the immediate future, this is Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray's organization.
Yeah, if you pivot, that's with the trade, and that's down the line, and down the line requires extending. I mean, the deal's actually almost up. You got to extend him at some point. So you're trying this again for one more year. There's, at least one more year, I should say, is how I prefer to say it. So you do extend him. And look, maybe you think about trades down the line if worst case scenario plays out. But I think Wind hit the framing. He hit that nail on the head. I mean, I don't think it's prudent to just go we'll do it later. I don't know. What
does it take now for Jamal to live up to this contract? It's kind of funny because we were not talking like this in his last one. In between there, they won a title, but he also did miss 2 years to injury and then another one where he was injured and hobbled. So what will it take for this to be a success over the life of that 4-year extension? And we'll also count this next year. So the next 5 years. What will it take? How do we measure success for Jamal there?
I mean, you measure success for Jamal Murray, I think, in just terms of championships for the Nuggets.
I agree.
The expectation should be that the Nuggets win more championships in the Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray prime years. They won one. I feel like the expectation is you at least win 1 or 2 more minimum over the next 3 to 5 years. That's what Nikola Jokic's prime looks like. I'd say 1 to 2 more championships should be the expectations with this core. And look, I could care less what Jamal Murray does in the regular season as long as he's healthy for the playoffs and the Nuggets have enough juice to win a championship. That's what it comes down to. Ideally, he is better in the regular season. Ideally, he can take more of the burden off Jokic, but it comes down to team success and it comes down to championships.
I think it's a different approach in getting back to playing up to his standards when it matters. because that was the thing about Jamal. It did not matter how it looked throughout the regular season. As long as it was the playoff time, you knew what the type of the caliber of player that you were getting. And that's what I think it comes down to. I do think he has to take the regular season a bit more serious, take the offseason a bit more serious. And now he's not a young guy. He's a vet. He is, the second best player on the team, the two main guys on the team. So, like, if you're going to be a cornerstay, if you're going to be a max contract type of player, you have to take it more seriously. So I think it's that playoff run, getting back to that and being true to it and taking it serious. And this is not on him, but just eluding injury. Like, just, doing the best that you can to stay away from those type of injuries that can, peg the team or bring them down in some type of way. So that'll happen.
And look, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Jamal Murray this next season.
As there should be.
A lot. Especially
100%.
if this deal gets done.
Yeah.
He's got to stay healthier. He's got to be better in the regular season. And like Dev said, we were fine with Jamal Murray doing the Jamal Murray stuff in the regular season because we knew that he was going to rise to historic levels in the playoffs. That's what he does. That theory's been shaken a little after these last playoffs.
I think shattered, personally.
Like, he's got to go
Prove
a
it.
long way and redeem himself for us to think that way again. So there's a ton of pressure on him this regular season and even more in the playoffs next year to be the Jamal Murray from the title run.
Right, there's two sides to this, right? You go no-brainer for Denver. It's also then okay to say in the next breath, Jamal now has to go take care of business.
Yeah.
This is a lot of money, and it's coming because life has been pretty easy next to 15, and you got to be doing everything you can to make sure life is easier for him too. It's like a mutual relation. It's a partnership, man, and that's not to imply that every decision he's made is bad or poor. He looked incredible 2 years ago, but with this maximum extension comes expectations and pressure. It is time to make an all-star team, and not just because voters decided, but because you took that question off the table. You took this conversation away from us on shows like this. Remove the doubt. Remove the doubt, because we know what's there when you prove it, when you show it. So just, I hope now it's about the professionalism and the maturity of taking these questions away from us and answering them for us.
By the end of this contract, he will have been paid like $380 million by the Nuggets. Like, it's an insane amount of money that he will have made when you sit there and think almost $500 million he will have earned. I don't think it's too much. And look, the championship obviously is the biggest thing, and I agree with you. Ultimately, if he never makes an all-star, never does any of this, but they win a title, another title, it's
Sure,
like, all that stuff is out the window. Who cares? But I think to get there in this next contract, it will take him being an all-star caliber player. Right. I'm going to frame it that way, because if he misses out, a lot of good guards in the West, but this year he was not an all-star caliber player. There was not a conversation about, man, he's on the bubble. I think he needs to be an all-star caliber player, and I think in the back half of a player's career, like the front half of his career is over, honestly. As long as he's been in the league 8, 9 years, 16-year career is that would be a good career for almost anyone. It's about halfway over. The back half of your career, especially when you're earning a max, in my opinion, that comes with a little bit of maturity, leadership, discipline, tone setting, culture setting, and those things. And I think that is something that Murray has not, to date, taken on. Neither has Nikola, by the way. I mean, in some ways he has, but not fully. But there's a vacancy there, and I think in this upcoming part, it has to be from him for him to earn it. I do think the Nuggets had to do this one. Yeah. And I even think that he has probably earned it based on how well he has played in 2 out of the 3 playoff series or 2 out of the 4 playoff series that he's been in, including the title run. But Murray's legacy in Denver probably will hinge a lot on what happens next, at least to some degree, will hinge on what happens over the course of this next one. $210 million is a lot. Let's get another championship. Let's take a break on the other side. That's one point guard locked up. Another point guard, Reggie Jackson, shipped out.
Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy sports. Check it out. You can download the app with that QR code right there on the screen. Check out Underdog Fantasy. They're actually running a site-wide promo for all Underdog customers for this Saturday. UFC 303. Alex Pereira, higher than 0.5 strikes. I feel like I'm not a UFC guy, but I feel like he'll get that.
He has to get it.
Unless it's just a first-second KO. So check that out at Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy sports. They also have pick'em games. It's as simple as selecting higher or lower on player stats. For the NBA, points, rebounds, assists. You can do that for all sports as well. So check it out. You can download it with the QR code right there on the screen. Again, they're running a site-wide promo. All active Underdog customers this Saturday, UFC 303, for Alex Pereira higher than 0.5 strikes. Sign up today, also with promo code DNVR, to claim your special pick plus first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. Underdog Fantasy code DNVR. Scan the QR code on the screen. Click the link in the description to sign up today. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-522-4700. Visit ncpgambling.org.
There are a lot of great times in life. A lot of great moments, a lot of great times. There's no better time than Miller time. And we have a lot of Miller time. Miller time is like a good portion of the clock here at DNVR. You know what I mean? Because we love Miller Lite. It's the original light beer. Many have tried, all have failed to replicate what Miller Lite got right the first time. Folks, more of the stuff you want, less of the stuff you don't. The original light beer, a lot's changed over the years. This hasn't, because they know they got it right the first time. Times do change, but you can always enjoy the great tasting Miller Lite. Taste like Miller Lite to get Miller Lite delivered right to your door. Visit MillerLite.com/DNVR, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. You guys know about Miller Lite. You know where to find it. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories for 12 ounces.
We got another update from the Timberwolves.
I think the fans hate him, to be honest. We find this stuff so much funnier than they do.
We can skip. We don't have to go to it. I just thought
All right, let's move on, though, to this Reggie Jackson. Yeah, the people kind of hate him, to be honest with you.
All right, sorry.
Reggie Jackson's been traded. We knew this would happen, or we assumed this would happen, because you got to clear the way. He played 82 games. I don't think Calvin Booth expected him to play in all 82 games and essentially take minutes away from Booth's guy, Jalen Pickett, but instead he did. So, all right, you're going to get rid of him. What's the price to get rid of a guy with a $5 million expiring contract was the question, and it turns out everything left. Three first. By the way, hilariously reported first that Denver got 3 seconds. Woj all kind of screwed the Nuggets on this because it's a bet. Look, I think giving up 3 for a guy you just signed is tough, no matter how you slice it. But telling the fan base they got 3 and then be like, never mind, you actually owe 3.
Because everyone was ready to be like, what is Calvin Booth cooking?
Yeah,
and then it was
let's
like,
cook it up.
shit, what is Calvin Booth cooking?
He's
you
just
know what
throwing
I mean?
away every second-round pick between now and the 2040s.
Right.
Dev, I'll start with you. What do you make of this? I mean, we thought he was going to be gone, but is this fair value, or did you feel like they gave up kind of a lot?
I feel like they gave up a lot. I was like shocked that they didn't get anything in return. And I mean, from when he signed his contract last year, you knew that it was. I mean, it was just a trial. Like, it was a trial error just to see how he would play. And he started out the year well. The reality kicked in very quickly. So, like, this is not, one of those things that you feel bad for a guy. Like, they did right by him, I feel like. But I do think that this was an overhaul of giving up so much to get rid of him. And I kind of want to know what went into that, like why they wanted to do that so much. So maybe there's other pieces that I haven't sat down to look at yet.
Yeah, I mean, the Nuggets were going to trade Reggie Jackson as soon as he opted into the player option for next season. Like, that was the signal, or else he would have just walked. But he played in 82 games last year. I don't think the front office was happy with that. That was a pure Michael Malone decision. And I think it ended up like hurting the Nuggets in the long run.
No
based
question.
on how last season went and into the playoffs. He played too big of a role last year. I don't think it was the role that he or the front office expected him to when they signed him. And now he goes to Charlotte, and I'm sure he'll be bought out of that contract, and I'm not sure, where he goes from there. But giving up 3 second-round picks is tough. I don't think second-round picks mean a ton, but the one thing I guess they do mean is you can get off contracts like Reggie Jackson. That's what they're valuable for a team like the Nuggets. Now they don't really have any of those to work with.
And they have one more guy to get rid of in Zeke,
right?
Presumably. So
right.
And it's 6 second-round picks, right? In the last 2 days.
3 to move up to get DaRon Holmes, and then 3 more to get rid of
So
Reggie
that does
Jackson.
add up in terms of, because they just don't have a ton of maneuverability with picks to win points.
Yeah, again, like I don't think that's going to matter a ton in the future, but I think what this does do is clears the way for Jalen Pickett to potentially enter the rotation next season at backup point guard. It also clears some money off your salary cap. I don't think you can close the door completely on KCP returning.
Then I'll come all the way around on it.
Right. Calvin Booth could
we'd have the
reverse this
most-
offseason vibe in a
Yeah.
hurry.
The most manic offseason in history if somehow KCP re-ups on Monday or something, and everyone's like, all right, well.
Right, totally.
So I guess all we lost was 6 first, got DaRon Holmes and
Yeah.
brought back KCP. Like, everybody be happy.
Yeah, but there's also been people that were saying they would do anything to get off of that contract. And then he does things like to get off of that contract,
Yeah. Right.
and it still becomes a problem.
Yeah, so we'll see if the Nuggets sign another veteran point guard. It kind of feels like they have to. You can't go into the season with just Jamal Murray and Jalen Pickett
No
there. I
way,
don't
dude.
think.
I can't feel good about it.
But I do think this might give Jalen Pickett the inside track to be in the rotation next season.
Yeah, and I think people were sort of bummed with the point guard situation more than Reggie was bad. You know, like I don't think Reggie was a disaster, but as a player, I mean, he wasn't my favorite watch.
He was here for two seasons, a season and a quarter.
But-
they brought him in after the trade deadline and gave him like a 10-game runway. It was horrible.
and then they gave him more money than they had to.
Then they way overpaid him.
and then
yeah.
you go, well, maybe it becomes tradable, but then it's not like they used that trade plus Zeke plus a pick to get better. They just attached 3 seconds to dump it. So
Right.
my point being, like, it was cool that Reggie was available for 82 games, like good on him and all that. But the life cycle of this little signing kind of appears to be a real bummer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he was bad last year. He played in 82 games. He was available. Great. Reggie Jackson was bad last year. They needed to go a different direction. This was the cost to do it, and it's just kind of standard business.
In the end, they got the big buyout guy on the market. He didn't help them. It took what very much appears to be a wink deal that you were always going to re-sign him and overpay him, and then you had to dump picks to get off of him. It doesn't feel like great business in the end.
I agree. At the end of the day, you look at that and go, would they have won the title last year if Reggie Jackson didn't sign on the buyout market? Probably, because it didn't really end up impacting that run. And then
2 years.
two years ago,
Yeah,
and then last year, like, would the season have been meaningfully different? I mean, they probably don't win 57 games if you don't rev Reggie, but they're probably in the exact same spot, second round. I mean, I think you'd have a hard
You
time.
think you win less without Reggie?
I mean, if you do, to me
I think
personally,
you might win more games without Reggie.
this is my point. Is to me, you win between 54 and 58 games without Reggie. It's not meaningfully
Right,
different in one
right.
direction or another. And so, to me, you look at that, and it's not just Cal's failure. I do think some of this is Malone owns, but at the end of the day, Cal signed him to $10 million. He was a negative asset, and then you had to include 3 picks
Right.
to get rid of him. So I think, however you slice that, it's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow for what it is.
But I'm excited to have a different point guard backing up Jamal Murray next year. Very excited.
So you would feel terrible if it was Pickett and no one else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like. Pickett might be good. I don't know. But the point is that I don't know. I mean, I didn't like the backup point guard situation last year.
Is there a contender in the NBA that would go into this next season with their point guard being a complete and total mystery? Who, by the way, is a second rounder, so you already shade towards not going to be
With
good.
like no insurance or backup plan,
Right.
that seems irresponsible.
Seems very irresponsible.
Seems
right?
irresponsible. So I would really, really like to see them bring a ball handler in, like an older, responsible one.
What if this was Calvin's thought process? We're going to go into the season with Jalen, but if it doesn't work out, there will definitely be a guy we can acquire. That belief, I don't know whether it's right or wrong. Like, do you think that would be too risky to assume?
Wildly irresponsible, because then you'll be bringing in somebody that's not playing or that's just not around. You have to hope. So you're
Or-
getting the bottom of the barrel type of players. So you're saying make a trade in the middle of the season?
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's just a trade
You
to be
go
had.
get Malcolm Brogdon on the buyout market.
Buyout market, or maybe it's like, there's a team that thought they were going to be good, suffered an injury, and you go and take like Javon Carter or something's with Milwaukee again. Their season goes belly up, and so you can get him.
No, I think that this team is built on continuity and just playing and being around each other. So you should do it like go into the season knowing what you're like going to expect. Jalen Pickett's going to go into the season thinking he's the backup point guard, and then just get derailed like that. I feel like that throws things off a bit. I do think that he's really young, and he's not really solidified. I mean, Colin Gillespie was playing over him. So I think that the writing is on the wall that they want someone else, like somewhere. At least, I mean, it has to be Michael Malone. But I do think that it would just be like right to just try to do it quickly, so you don't have to worry about finding a guy later if you already have a guy.
Lastly, here KCP did end up opting out of his deal. No surprise. Everybody kind of knew that was going to happen. Now the question is, do they match? Is there any? I mean, you seemed like you were a little optimistic that maybe this door is not closed, and perhaps this move is a prelude to trying to make room to bring him back.
Well, I don't know. I mean, they salary dumped Reggie. Like, that's what that move was. You saved some money there. Now you're, firmly under both aprons without KCP.
Right.
If you salary dump Zeke, again, like, that would be a terrible look, because why would you even sign him to that contract in the first place? But if you do that, you definitely have enough money for KCP. You just do.
There's one first left to use this year.
That's it, man.
That's it. Is attaching the 2031 first to move Zeke to play ball with KCP.
But I don't even know if you can trade it for that, because wasn't there some rule about I don't remember exactly how it breaks out. But
The
when you get
Stepien rule.
no, there's not that. It's once you get to that second apron, that 2030 Denver's 2031 becomes locked.
Yeah, but
Who cares about 2031?
But if they trade it, I don't know if
Well, I'm
the
saying
order,
that's why I don't know if you
but
can trade.
does the
it or
order of
whatever.
operations matter there? Like if you traded it to get below and then you make
I
the
don't
signing?
think it matters. Like,
yeah.
I would probably do what you need to do to have one more last dance with KCP, run it back for this season,
Yeah.
then see what happens. Like, I would do, if it was up to me, I would do what I could to have one last dance and run that starting five back again.
But with these like salary dump moves, I think that you give yourself like insurance or just another option. If you do miss out on KCP, at least you have money to go after somebody. And then you just ask the question of like trying to get a backup point guard. Maybe they answer two things at one time. But at least I think that there's like, hey, we have something else. Let's try to find out then. And I think that these type of moves lead you to that decision.
So if KCP walks now after the Reggie trade, they can use the full MLE in that scenario?
I believe the taxpayer MLE.
The taxpayer MLE, rather?
Yeah. So here's the thing, man. Here's how I look at it, because now I just want to wrap up the show, talk about what is the state? Like, how do we feel about the direction of the team right now? There's a lot of uncertainty, I think, in the fan base. Rightfully so. There's uncertainty in myself at the moment. I look at it this way. If you were able to bring back KCP, let's forget about the long-term implication here, because I think that's a separate question from, at the moment, you have Jokic in his prime, you only can think 1 year at a time. If you told me you had KCP on the roster next year, I would actually feel great about the Denver Nuggets in 2025. Of course. Forget any other moves that come in. If you told me KCP was there, now you have Christian, you have Peyton off the bench, and then you really only need one of DaRon Holmes, Pickett, Strother, Tyson, one of those guys to be like a regular season playable guy. And I think the Nuggets are a top seed and their playoff roster is set. If that happens. If he's not there, I mean, we'd have to wait and see who they replace, but almost certainly would not be a player that would excite me enough to feel good about it. So to me, it almost exclusively comes down to this KCP situation.
That's what we thought it would come down to,
And
probably.
that's what we thought it would come down to.
Because I think, look, there are plenty of, I think, not only fair but responsible conversations to have about, does the lack of bench depth make Malone's job harder in terms of finding a rotation that makes life easier on the starters? Fair conversation. But also at the end of the day, they lost that series because the starters weren't good enough, and it does feel like Jamal, in particular, was several levels below what he could have and should have been. And so it is still about the starters. There are little questions to have about, are they deep enough to get them the breaks they needed? But I do still believe that starting five can go and win this West without a doubt. Like that, they're very firmly in that conversation.
Right. So that's, to me, it all comes down to it. And if you do lose KCP, if he is gone, if that's just like a non-starter, you can't get him, I would have a hard time imagining what the rest of the moves look like that would make me feel good about it.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is one out there,
Yeah.
one or two, but to me, that's more of a long shot. If it's like we find out Sunday night, Monday morning, KCP has signed with the 76ers or something, I would look at this and go, probably the least optimistic I've been about the Nuggets in 3 seasons. That's how I'll feel.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to feel that way because, yeah, they'll be able to sign somebody, whether it's like an Eric Gordon or, another guard
Right.
out there that can come in and give you 25 minutes a game. That player is not going to be better or more impactful than KCP. He's just not. I do kind of wonder if this KCP thing, and it's Calvin Booth's Bill Belichick moment. And what I mean by that is, Bill Belichick on the Patriots, he would always get
Right.
off of veterans right before they were about to get paid. You know this as a Patriots fan.
Hate it.
He would get off veterans right before they were about to get paid and right before they were about to decline. I wonder if that's how he's viewing KCP and another contract, a big money contract, and entering the second apron with him. If that's kind of what he's juggling in his mind.
Well, KCP, we've blamed Murray a lot, Malone, all this. KCP was bad in the playoffs too.
Right.
And
It
we
was.
all kind of just think this was because it was a tough matchup, and I actually think that's what it is. But there is something too. It's like, how could we lose this guy who was completely and totally ineffective defensively in the series they lost?
Yeah. And
Yeah, there's
KCP,
some of
he's
that.
31, 32 years old next year. He's got a lot of miles on him. These last couple of seasons, he's played through a lot of ticky-tack injuries. None of them have kept him off the court, but, they've hindered his play, I feel like. And I just feel like Calvin Booth might be making the Bill Belichick calculation in his mind of, is this guy going to be worth it, a year from now, 2 years from now? I don't know what the answer is, but I wonder if that's what he's thinking about.
Yeah, I think to save face, I just want to wait until something happens. But I do think that there is another side of this coin. There is maybe this is okay, type of look for it. Like you just talked about, that age. You're going to be paying a guy in the new, with the new CBA and things, that much money, and it kind of hinders the roster moving forward. I do think that there's give and take for every decision. And
Yes.
I think that you kind of have to look at that as well. I do think that they're a better team when KCP is playing at his best, at the top caliber. But everybody, same thing happens for Jamal. Same things happens for, Jokic. That's just with everybody. But what if they're not? And I think that that's something that they're looking at too. Hey, this is an older guy that is getting more miles, that's just only going to keep getting older, who also is playing off of a bad run. And I think Jamal takes the brute of how bad the year ended. But KCP was right there as well. So I think that there is that's also fresh on their minds as well.
Yeah. And there's another part of this that is Reggie Jackson played in front of Pickett in a way that, clearly has bothered Booth, and now he's gone. I think you could say the same with Peyton. Even this year, Justin Holiday playing more minutes than Peyton in the second round, those types of things. I wonder if there's any, in Cal's mind, he views it's time for Christian to play more minutes with Nikola, Peyton more minutes with Nikola, and he's like, if KCP, we bring him back as good as he is and we need him, does that just mean Christian never plays with Jokic again next year? I mean, honestly, maybe.
I think that's part of Booth's thinking.
I think that might be part of
it
it
or not. It does seem like that's part of it. I mean, look, let's not kid ourselves. We talk a lot about Booth's conviction. One way that manifests, seemingly, he's like, yeah, Bruce Brown, whatever. I think Peyton's better.
Right.
No, KCP, whatever. We've got Christian. Maybe he's right, and he looks like a cold genius years from now. But there is a little bit of well, they helped a little. They played a role in the title, both of those guys. They helped a little bit.
I mean, there's no question about that. I think that this is just everything you can say about Booth. I think that the fan base says about Booth, I think you could say about Malone too. He too has an ego. He too is stubborn. And he too has strong conviction that it's no, it's this way, not that way. It's this way. And unfortunately, those guys last year went these two different directions, and now these moves, they all feel like they're trying to account for one another. And that's why maybe you don't bring back a KCP, maybe you get rid of a Reggie, maybe you do all this different stuff. Is all right. One of us has to win this, and I'm gonna hold it hostage.
I don't think that's the case with KCP. I think that's the case with Reggie.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the case with KCP, though. I mean, I think Calvin Booth recognizes how good KCP is. I just think that when he's weighing the contract and the second apron and KCP's age, that's the main part of what he's thinking about here with that.
Yeah, the last piece that I think that fans and just people in general, me, I think that the thing that we don't see is the player side of this as well. We just make it seem like Calvin's making all these decisions. No, KCP also has a very big decision to make on if he wants to run this back. And maybe those are conversations that's Calvin is having with him. It's not only about the apron and the money, but also, like, are you able to give him 4 years that another team is able to give him? Are you able to give him that type of insurance? And he's having to bet on himself if he wants to run it back for 2 years here. And then something bad happens, or if he's hobbled for another year, then that starts to go down. So I think that there's two sides of a coin, and maybe they're seeing that, like, hey, this is kind of similar to a Jeremy Grant, where, you know, everybody was like, hey, why didn't you re-sign him? And Jeremy's like, I never wanted to be there.
Right,
or a Bruce
right.
Brown, where he really does want to be here, but he can't because he's making so much more money elsewhere, and this is what's best for his future and his family. Same thing with Tim Connolly. Like, there's another side, and that's their decision as well. So I see that everybody's like so on Calvin Booth right now. He's only one side of this, whole thing.
Like,
also one championship in 2 years, not bad. It's not the worst thing.
There is a little bit of, I mean, you can look at the Jokic's prime thing in two different ways. On one hand, he is so historically great, you want to get greedy. On the other, like, as far as like failing Jokic in his prime, or some of the language you see used, in the tense moments, they did go and get one. And last year was not an. Last year they won 57 games and almost made it back to the conference finals. They didn't fall apart. I think
all of this comes down to that. How do you view last season? Because they won a title, and then they won 57 games, but looked horrible in the playoffs.
So is that?
And so, were they close or were they way apart? And if you think they were close, it's just that Murray was a little injured, team was a little tired, maybe missed, like all these little factors that can be fixed. Then you think, okay, there's some logic to perhaps Cal's vision. If you think no, that they ran out of steam because the team is compromised and this or that, then you probably feel even more far apart. I think Cal, and I think a lot of people in the Nuggets organization, honestly, believe that they could have won last year. They didn't, but they could have. And that this next year...
a choke 20-point lead in Game 7 away from maybe going to the finals.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to be right back there next season, I think, even if they lose KCP.
Yeah.
Even if they just run back the roster that they've had without him, I think they have a great shot to win the championship. Like, that's just how good, the top of this roster is.
If they keep going backwards, uncomfortable conversations will continue to happen. But I do think there's like a little bit of benefit of the doubt that seems to have evaporated quite quickly. But look, that's sports, and that's the name of the game.
You want to know something funny, though? When we were talking about the KCP playing in front of Christian, one of the things is he definitely did in the Wolves series. Whatever you think about the regular season, he was a better matchup against Anthony Edwards, but didn't play him very much.
Right.
For whatever reason. And I do think, like, you could just say this. If you ran back that series but swapped KCP and Christian and said Christian starts, KCP plays Christian's minutes off the bench, did Denver do better or worse? I actually would argue they do better in that one series because of that one matchup. And that maybe is another angle or perspective to kind of have on this. Nonetheless, to wrap it up, do you feel better, or what's your scale of nervousness about the direction of the team on a scale of 1 to 100? 100 being like it's over.
Wow,
it's so
1
over.
to 100.
What if I said 10? We
That's
get
a
too many,
great question.
Let us know in the chat too. Send us in your chats.
1
So
to
the
100.
higher number is higher confidence?
No, that's like that. Okay, it's a panic meter. 100 is total panic.
Oh.
1 is zero panic. You love everything's fine.
I'll say like 35.
So it's low.
I still feel good about the starter. I don't love...
The direction of the team.
I understand Booth's logic of like, look, we're going to have to reset this wave. We need young, controllable guys. Do I feel awesome about the bench this year? No, not at all. Do I still feel like the starting 5 could be good enough? Yes. Do they still have Jokic? Yes.
This is such a funny question because I think I'm more panicked than you, but you wouldn't know it by all the arguments we made on the show. I was like, I'm going to be like a 60? I don't know.
40. I'll go up to 40.
All right, what about you, Dev?
I'm at like a 70, 75.
For concern?
You're pretty concerned, man. You're pretty concerned.
Yeah, and it's only because,
Cedric's at a 90.
I think it's because, there's a piece that's missing. You don't know who the starting shooting guard is. So,
I
like,
know.
once we get that answer, I think that you make some changes there.
Yeah.
Also, they now still do not have a backup point guard. That's still
they got
there.
one.
That's like
they
where
have
my
one.
40. That's
Well,
like where
we
my
don't know
40
what
is.
Jalen Pickett is. We
Yeah,
have not
right.
seen him in that type of setting. So,
Yeah.
what does it look like if he gets thrown out there for the same exact minutes that they gave Reggie Jackson? And they showed, they played Reggie Jackson to where he was unplayable. And they're going to have to do that with Jalen Pickett as well. So, it's a sink or swim league. And they're just going to make sure that like he does either of those. So I think that with those question marks, right now, I am worried.
I'm not worried. I'm probably at like a 10. I'm not worried. I think as the roster currently is right now, they're going to be probably just as good as they were last year. And I think that's good enough. Like, you're in the conversation. Yeah, I'm not worried.
I'm worried. I'm worried.
I got to say it. Before the show, Adam goes, think I'm going to be the optimist today.
I thought I was. I'm gonna go 60, which is to say I'm slightly more worried than I am optimistic. But I'm not as panicked. I think as like the general timeline or comment section or some of the stuff that I've seen. I still think these are margin moves, but I also feel like the margins are. There's so much risk on a lot of different margins. So we'll see. There's a whole nother week to see things happen. And who knows? Maybe we all laugh this off next week when KCP's just back. And it's like, well, what do you know? Run it back. And now we all.
And Booth's like, no, I literally meant we want him back. But if he doesn't come, that's all I meant.
All right. Super chats.
Bobby Gonzalez, we definitely need Holmes. I like the draft. It's what we do after that matters. I hope Booth isn't playing Moneyball and forcing Malone to play young.
Well,
I've got some bad news for you, Bobby.
Moneyball is actually a pretty good strategy, too. I don't know if you remember that.
Rob Atherton.
Oakland A is pretty good.
yeah.
I've seen the film. Thought on Booth basically removing any obstacles to force Malone to play his guys by leaving no other options for him.
Again, man, this is why alignment is so important. And it's funny, man, covering this league when you see how many layers of complexity there are to building success in an organization that employs 100 people. Yeah, man, Booth feels like he has to do this, and Malone put him in position in some ways to feel that way. But I think whoever you think deserves more blame, I think there's a fair argument for both.
Here's a question. If the Nuggets just had Jalen Pickett play 82 games in the same exact role that Reggie Jackson played last year, I don't think the Nuggets are any worse.
Well, and the bigger point to that is
know?
we would know what Jalen Pickett is at this very moment. And that's
I think
the
they
difference.
might actually have been better, to be totally honest. I think the bench might have been better.
I do like the point that at least we would know going into this year. And that's, maybe you could argue,
And also the point that there were games where the Nuggets didn't score for 5 minutes, like with that bench unit, which is like, how much worse could you be? So I don't know.
It's over, we're so back roller coaster. It's just Jared from FOCO. We basically got our second rounder with PJ Hall. Harrison Wind reporting first, by the way, that the Nuggets are signing PJ Hall of Clemson to a 2-way contract. Hunter Tyson reunion. But Jared from FOCO loves it. Paying 3 seconds to dump Reggie, not so much.
Could have gotten a lot of PJ Halls for that.
That's
Nuggets
right.
had a first-round grade, I'm told, on PJ Hall. There you go.
Shams reporting that PJ Hall had a lot of second-round interest, but he told everyone, "Hey, don't bother. I want to sign him in Denver."
I also love how many guys, like every pick had a first round, and then undrafted guys even had a first round grade. We almost took him at 22.
And
Depends on
the agent
the
goes,
team.
and then the agent goes, "We didn't even want him drafted. We wanted to sign here."
That's right. Everybody got exactly what they wanted.
Yeah. Ulysses Ventura, sign Jokic's big bro on a Thanasis deal. No, no, thank you.
I mean, that's probably coming from somebody who was complaining all year about all the wasted roster spots, too.
Cedric Exquisite, we got Holmes coming home. KCP over Jamal. That's fucking insane, man. Respect though, you paid for it. I feel like he stays with us in my heart. See y'all in Vegas, my home. P.S. Jamal is not worth that extension. Give it to AG.
He's got an extension next year, I think.
Not how this
coming
stuff
up.
really works, though. Matthew Bryan, not a topic for today.
Dude,
but
I read that as not a toe pitch.
but I will be relentless in the Troy Alexander propaganda. Another Harrison Wind report. All the Summer League Nuggets are good.
You know what? Maybe they are.
Super dope hip hop. How elite has playoff Murray been? 19 most games of 20 plus game score, which you can see on Basketball Reference. Pre 28, years old since 1977.
Thank you for that. I was trying to figure that out.
All 18 ahead of top 75. GOAT. Jamal Murray over Curry, KG, Isaiah, Wade, Pippen, Barkley, CP3, AD, Truth, Embiid, Booker, T-Mac, Kyrie, Clyde Iverson.
I mean, you're not wrong. Jamal at his best is unbelievable. That's why he's so frustrating.
Yeah,
Jamal at his best is unbelievable. Jamal, give us your best. The Nuggets are giving you $210 million.
For everything we talked about today, this may just be the only thing that matters.
It is the only thing that matters. That's why it's so annoying.
Bobby, again, we need to prepare ourselves for the fact that Booth might want to have his stamp on it and say I was able to build the dynasty with my guys in scouting.
I mean, I understand people thinking that. Maybe, look, man, maybe.
Instead of re-signing Murray, Booth could have used the $52 million in cap space to re-sign KCP, acquire a fantastic bench, and get starting point guard who can stay healthy. Is this worthwhile?
Man, the fan base is really... Man, the fan base hates Booth, hates Murray,
I will
hates
say,
Pickett.
They won a championship 380 days ago.
With those two people.
I feel like I'm going crazy
I
here.
know,
These
man.
takes.
I know.
I understand having Jamal questions, but going to let him walk,
I know,
I think
it
we're
goes
like
so
a little.
far.
I
It
think
goes
we're
so
a little
far.
far. But hey, Noah, you paid, so good on you.
You know what? Interesting week. More to come.
Very interesting.
Very interesting week. Tomorrow we're going to talk about two ways that the Nuggets signed and maybe get away from the Nuggets and look at some other people who have done well. Do us a favor, hit that like button on the way out. Leave comments. Let us know what you guys are thinking of the team. We'll see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.